So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. We're going to do a dive into some tips, tricks, and workflows we can run inside Bluebeam. So, a couple quick reminders before we start. This webinar is part of a series of webinars that Microdesk hosts. If you'd like to see any of our previous webinars, those are all already available. You can go to the events page and see what's coming up next as well. Or you can jump to our YouTube page and see everything we've ever done. So, secondly, there is a questions section at the bottom of the webinar page there. And if you have any questions as we go, please type them into there. So I've got some coworkers with me who will answer if they are able to. Otherwise, I will go through those questions at the end of the session. All right. So to put a face to the voice real quick, my name is Ed, and I am a Strategic Implementation Manager at Microdesk. I am also the Bimerex MEP and Fabrication Product Owner. So I've been heavily involved with automation and BIM adoption over the years, running the gambit from first-time implementations all the way to advanced integrations. So today, I'll be showing off some of my favorite commands and workflows that I've developed and kind of found inside Bluebeam. And with that, I think we can just jump straight to the demo. All right, so diving in here, I've already got a file open. If we really want to pull back to where you do that, you're just jumping up to file here and you're opening up those PDFs. So I don't think we need to be that basic. Let's jump into some of the higher stuff, right? So just to get everyone on the same page here, we have the ribbon up top. These are each of the little modules we can work with. So you got the ribbon up top, you've got some quick access over on the right. These are commands that exist either within the ribbon or within some of the tools that exist to our left. So as I move through and I comment on things, I just want us to all be aware about what I'm talking about. So you got quick access, ribbon, and tools. So let's kind of go through a process here. When I think about working with a document, there's probably let's call it 3 main stages. We maybe do a little bit of document prep to make this PDF usable. We do some work within that document, stuff like markups and comments, changing some stuff. And then maybe on the back end, we're doing some sort of comparing and managing. Maybe we're looking at other documents, maybe we're working with this document a little more, maybe we're prepping it so I can hand it off to someone else, right? But if we really think about it, we've kind of got these 3 phases from document prep, working with it, and then managing it. And I'd like to kind of go through those couple steps. And let's look at some tricks we can do to make it a little bit easier as we go. So the first thing I want to point out, you may notice in my toolbar on the left, I might have a slightly different order than you do. If you did not know, you can actually take and move these items around. So you can move them up, you can move them down, you can reorder them to your heart's content, entirely up to you. So you'll notice what I've done is I've actually made thumbnails my very first item. Personally, I think this is really where you drive your Bluebeam document from. I wanted it to be first. So I'm starting with thumbnails. It's the first place I go to look. It's the first place we're going to learn how to do a cool trick. So a really quick automation for everyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at these page labels. If we take a look through here, some of these things maybe came in from another project. Some of them might have been combined together. Maybe these names were written to the PDF itself when it was exported. If you run down, not everything maybe even has a page label, or maybe you've got nothing and you just have empty pages and you're searching through a couple hundred, trying to find exactly what you care for. Well, this is our first little trick. If we look directly up here to the right of that word thumbnails, you'll see this little sun symbol. I want everyone to think of that sun symbol as sort of a create, something new, bright and shiny, right? You'll see it in a few different places throughout Bluebeam as well. So if we look at that sun symbol, we're looking at creating those page labels. Now you'll take a look here and we've kind of got 2 options. We can do it from bookmarks or page regions. Now, it's my opinion that at this point, we probably don't have bookmarks created yet. Because they're not created, I don't really want to use those. I'd rather use page regions. And what page region is going to do is actually leverage Bluebeam's incredibly powerful OCR process to generate these labels for us. So how does this actually look? How does that work? We'll see it's calling out page region. And if I go to the right and click select, It's giving me a little cursor. What it's actually asking me to do is highlight the area within my plan that I expect to see the information that I want. Now, we will get a little bit unlucky. I think my project here doesn't quite read what's going on here. If I want to go ahead and try that again, maybe we can back it up, say cancel, and pick a new region instead, right? So if I want to select, maybe we want to try grabbing the actual name. And looks like I'm having a little bit of bad luck here as far as these names go. Let's do one more back to the numbers and we'll just let it be. Say okay. I'm going to let it go through and process all of those, and it's just going to run through very quickly, doing that scanning and then assigning those page labels to any page that it's able to make that label match up for. So you might get a little unlucky like I did. Maybe one of your sheets or a couple of your sheets don't exactly work where we want. We should find that a majority of these sheets work perfectly though. More often than not, this is likely just a text issue, maybe using a little bit of out-of-date text here coming from AutoCAD. To be honest, I've not had this issue running out of Revit programs anytime recently. In fact, earlier today, when testing this out, I did not run into this issue, as you can see through several of these other ones down here on the left. So it takes a couple minutes, runs through, generates those page labels for us, and then we can kind of just use those through our project. Makes it a lot easier to jump around, figure out what you're actually working with, finding those areas we want to go to. So just giving it a couple more seconds here and we can move on. So after page labels, I'd like to go ahead and take a look at bookmarks. And there we go. Looks like those original ones up here, as they came from maybe a different program, these ones didn't really line up quite so well. So I got 5 sheets that I need to manually edit. As we look at the rest though, all of these populated properly. We jump down that 3P7, we can zoom out. We find out it's calling out the exact same thing, right? So pretty nifty, really easy way to do this. Now, if we jump down to bookmarks right afterwards, we'll notice mine is currently empty because I haven't worked with any yet. I have a couple options for when I go to create those bookmarks. So if I want to just add one, I can add it manually, or we'll see that sun symbol again. I can create them right here. Very, very similar to page labels. We can either choose a page region or just use the labels that have already been created to go ahead and create these bookmarks. Now, I think this is up to you. Sometimes I will do this as a region and do the sheet name instead. So I can jump to my tabs up here to go ahead and look at numbers, jump to my bookmarks to look at names. Other times I will duplicate the page labels. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate page labels. Because what I want to point out here is, bookmarks aren't really here just to be another way to jump between sheet to sheet, right? They're really supposed to be leveraged to do some more powerful stuff. So what are those more powerful things we might be looking at? Well, if we look in here, you'll notice when I created those bookmarks, it actually created this tiered system for me, right? It's not just an individual line. I have tiers of elements coming over here. And if you look at the right, you might even notice that collapse arrow. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, maybe we can put some sub bookmarks underneath each of these items. So how would we maybe go about doing something like that? Well, if we zoom in, maybe I have decided that 3 Medgas 2.2J also needs to go take a look and maybe zoom in on this clean scope storage. Maybe there's something going on over here. I can zoom directly into this area, add that bookmark in, and maybe I want to say this is a CSS review. You can then take that bookmark, drag it up a little bit, and you'll notice it drops it right underneath. So I can go to my overall plan right here, and then as I know that review needs to happen, I can jump in and zoom into that smaller portion here as well. So it's a very nice way that we can jump through, and if we have some key areas that we want to maintain forever, we can go ahead and maintain those key area jumps by adding in some little drops. Now, you might have heard a little note from me right there, forever. I'm talking about letting this run for a really long time. The reason is, if we look up here, I have ordered flags immediately afterwards. So thumbnails, bookmarks, and flags are all pretty similar, but they have slightly different uses. And I think what we're looking at here is the tiered use between them. So thumbnails are the overall sheet, just get you to the sheet so you can look at what's going on. Bookmarks are that same overall sheet with some smaller areas stashed in between. And flags Well, flags are a list of those zoomed in areas. Plix fizz, please fix. There we go. And this is really what flags are here for. So they're almost, you can think of them as like little, you know, those Post-it note stickies that you'd stick out on your drawing set to kind of call out that there's something going on that sheet. Well, that's really what these are for. They're little individual elements that you can stick through. You'll notice I linked mine directly to this sheet by jumping in here and placing it on the sheet. The easiest way to place it on your sheet is right-clicking and adding a flag. Wherever you are zoomed in level, when you place that flag, if I jump back, we'll notice zooms you into that exact same area. So what's cool about these flags is that you can kind of just create them as you need stuff fixed, and we can trust that later on they're either going to get deleted or moved. Now, why do I know that these are being treated a little bit differently than my bookmarks or my thumbnails? Well, as it turns out, flags are considered a markup inside Bluebeam. So how do you know if something's a markup? What's a really easy way to start finding those markups? Well, I'm going to key you in to my favorite panel in all of Bluebeam. The very bottom of your screen, if you move all the way down, you'll get the kind of extendo button showing up, right? If you grab and drag up, you'll actually open up your markup list. If we click on any of those flags, we'll find that those flags are markups. So because it's a markup, there is a whole bunch more really cool stuff we can do with it. We will take a look at that cool stuff a little bit later on. I just want you to be aware, flags are markups, they show in our markup list. But additionally, within the markup list, they have their own pane to make it very easy to jump from area to area and get stuff fixed. So there are some other options for creating them up here. Just real quick, if you want to see, you know, if you want to make a brand new flag, you can just add a flag. It creates it for whatever the original sheet is that you have here. That flag, again, linked to just wherever you were zoomed when you click it. Cool. But what's extra cool is if you want to add an action to it, you can actually change that flag to do something else entirely. So when you click that flag, if you wanted it to jump to an entirely different document, you could have another document loaded, jump to that other document. If you want it to jump to wildly different pages, you can do any of that stuff you want over here. If you want it to jump to a snapshot of an area, you can go ahead and place that snapshot afterwards, say okay, and now that flag is jumping to the snapshot, right? The real difference here being this flag has been placed on the screen, is visible on the screen. This flag is just jumping me directly to a spot, not necessarily visible on the screen as a markup. And if you look down here, you'll notice that new flag not showing up as a markup, where this flag is showing up as a markup. If I can make a quick recommendation, I would say use the markup based one, because we're going to go ahead and take a look later at why those markups can be so useful to us. All right, so I'd say at this point, guys, we probably set our project up. I've got some stuff called out that I know needs to exist. I've named my items, we're ready to go. I need to do some work now. So what's that work that we're really doing inside a document? We're either doing some document review, maybe we're doing some markups. Let's take a look at a couple quick ways we can do either of those things. So markups, we don't need to dive into how every single command works. I just want us to kind of see what's available over here, right? You're going to definitely want to take some time on your own, run through, see how each of these items behaves exactly. I just want you to be aware of what exists. So if we take a look up here in tools, this is where we'll start to see markup. So we'll see some stuff for marking up here. We'll see some stuff for stamping, for measuring, for sketching to scale, which we will look deeper at later, for doing forms, and for doing signatures. So very quickly, most people here probably not having the ability to do forms. That is a Review Extreme feature only. Additionally, though, we probably don't need forms when we're doing a document review. This is much for legal items and legal documents. If you are working with legal and you want to know more about that, reach out for something else. Definitely not something we're looking at today, though. So the rest of those tools, though, markup, stamps, measurements, sketches to scale, and signatures, these are all markups. These are all things that we can use, place, work with later. So what is a markup? It's just something we throw down on our screen. Maybe I drew a line up here for no good reason. Doesn't matter, shows up as a markup. Maybe I wanted to call out that there should be a whole other run existing down here. I can instead go up and do that same thing. You'll also notice next to any command is a keyboard shortcut for that command. If I know I'm drawing a lot of lines, I don't actually need to go to that tool every time I'm doing it. I can just jump in here and start drawing those lines myself, right? So it's very quick to place those markups, very quick to get them on. You know, we don't necessarily need to go through what each of those are. They're exactly what they say they are. Do you want lines? Draw a line. Do you need an arc? Draw an arc. Do you need a polyline? Draw a polyline. Feels very, very similar to AutoCAD, very, very similar to drafting 2D inside Revit. Now, there are a couple things related to the tools and markups that I do think it is very worthwhile to know that I would like to dive into a little bit deeper. So those are going to be the items for measurement and sketching to scale. So something else I'd like to very quickly point out, while I am going up to the top bar here to get each of these items, many of these are available over here on the left. We'll see a lot of those markups are available in my tool chest. We'll come back to that. If we jump down to the measurement, we'll notice all of those measurement commands are available down here. If we look at the signatures, we'll notice all the signature stuff is available here, right? So there are some items that do exist in multiple locations. It's really up to you which one you want to go to. I know that everything is available in this top bar. I tend to go here because of that. I'm comfortable with it. It's where the stuff I know is. So let's jump to measure. And let's go ahead and do the very first step here. If you actually try to do anything else, it's probably going to go ahead and say, hey, we don't actually have a scale here, right? And we'll actually see that happening right here. I have no scale. So if I click cancel, you know, I'm not actually getting any dimensions placed because I don't have a scale. So let's go ahead and assign a scale to my project. And because most of us don't actually place scales on our drawings anymore, there is a very, very easy way to figure out what the scale of your page is. And that is to go find a door. So if we jump up to tools, we go to measurement, we can set our scale. It's going to ask me to do a custom, or rather I want to do a custom scale and I want to calibrate that scale. I want to go ahead and pick 2 points. I'm going to choose over here and I'm going to come straight up to the other side of the door. And I'm going to say that that is a 3 foot scale. So now we jump back in here, go to measurement, and if I try to maybe take a measurement, we should see it reading out correctly at this point, right? So cool stuff. Anytime we want to do anything measurement based, we absolutely need to jump in here and calibrate it first. Making that real quick recommendation, doors are always 3 feet. Almost every sheet has a door in it someplace. Probably the easiest way to make that happen. So cool, we've done that measurement. There's a whole bunch of other measurements we can do as well. Right? If we look inside those measures, a whole bunch of other versions of this we can do. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and run all of these, though we will talk a little bit more about them later when we get to the toolbox. What I do want to talk about is this sketch to scale. Sketch to scale can be a pretty powerful tool. And why is it so powerful? Well, it actually lets us start building stuff out that we can add to our toolbox. So what do I want to draw down here? I'm going to do, you know, maybe show my background a little bit here. And maybe I want to draw something that's about 2 by 2. Maybe I'm drawing an air terminal, right? Can drop that down in here, give myself a shape. So I've got a square that's roughly air terminal size, pretty cool. Now, I don't actually have enough detail in here. It's just a square, right? I need some more information. So why don't I go back to those tools? Maybe I draw another markup. Maybe that markup's a line. I can go ahead and just draw a line here right across. Maybe I want to combine some other stuff. Maybe I want to change the colors of these things, you know, entirely up to me. You know, selecting multiple elements, holding down shift to get multiple, looking at my settings to get over there and see what changes I can make to that markup, right? We do have a lot of options related to what we're doing to anything individual. And maybe I want that, you know, let's see, color to be red all the way around, right? Easy peasy. Now, what's cool isn't just the fact that I can create that. What's cool is the fact that once I've created it once, I can leverage it over and over and over again. Why don't we jump and take a look at what's called the toolbox? If we jump into the toolbox, you might notice a whole bunch of stuff in here already. Real good chance that you don't think any of this applies to you at all. Totally fine, entirely up to you. What we can do very quickly in the little drop down here is manage our tool sets. So on day one, maybe there's a bunch of these you already want to turn off. Feel free, get rid of them. What's really cool about this is that you can add new ones in. So this new one I'm going to call, this is going to be the BB demo. So it's a brand new one. What do I want it to do? I want it to display and have a relative path. Ooh, that's cool. I don't maybe want it to show in all profiles. I want people to choose. I'm going to say okay. That's going to create a brand new tool set. What's so cool about this is I can go ahead and save this file anywhere I want. If we're working within our company and we have a bunch of standard symbols or notes or drawings that we add to our PDFs, we can create a singular toolbox, throw it on our server, and all of us can access it. So I'm going to replace the one that's already there, save a brand new one, and this new one is going to be totally empty. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay, and if we scroll down, we'll see there's BB demo, but there's nothing inside it. What's super cool here is you can grab those elements, right click, and I'm going to first group them together. What's that group do? Well, no longer are they three individual elements. They are a single element. I could even maybe rename that group down here and call that air terminal. And what's so cool about having that air terminal group existing? Well, I can then take that air terminal group, right click it, and I can add it to a tool chest. And now it exists in my BB demo tool chest. So I can just treat that as a new command and just place these down anytime I need it, right? So we can build out our tool chest full of all these individual things that we care about and reuse them over and over and over again. Really, really nifty stuff. All right, so tool chest, pretty nifty. Lets us do some cool things, right? We can sketch stuff to a certain size. We can build it afterwards. We can add it back in. We can work with it. Really cool things. I want to throw out a couple other cool things that we can do with the tool chest, just so you're aware they exist. So if we were to take a look at maybe some of those measurement tools, maybe I jump up and take a look at one of the measures, and why don't we go ahead and do area? If I use the area measurement tool, and we kind of just go ahead and, let's fill it out within here, right? That gives me just that little area piece right there. Cool, but maybe there's some more information I care about. Well, it does turn out if there is more information you care about, we do have access to that. Jumping in to some of those settings, if we go ahead and look at that caption there and edit it, you can actually include a lot more options here. And it'd be really nice if maybe we could include those options by default, right? And it turns out you can. If you want to add a bunch of those, you can jump down to the bottom and you can set those as default. You can also add them to your tool chest. So if you are creating custom layouts, custom options within these things, changing what they say and what they do, you can actually add that in as a new default setting in your tool chest. And we'll actually see automatically built out within that tool chest is already a few that they have done specific for people. So if we look at that general one I just placed over there, we can draw this one in and we'll see that it gives just the same exact layout, but with additional items already called out on it, right? So really cool stuff. We can kind of build those out and do even more powerful stuff with them, right? You can get a really custom set of all the tools you need to do your document review in minutes. All right, so we've gone through, we've placed some of that stuff down. We've got a whole bunch of markups sitting all over the place. We probably need to work with those markups now. Well, if we look down below, that's what this markup list is really for. And there's a couple ways that I like to work with those markups. So how do I like to work with them? Well, I really like to leverage layers. We'll notice right now there's a couple layers automatically assigned to flooring. We'll see it up here as well, flooring. Because on creation, we ask that to automatically assign itself to flooring. We could maybe think of maybe putting that group that we had earlier on an HVAC layer, so that anytime I place one of my air terminals down, it's placed on a layer called HVAC. Why is that cool? Well, you can actually toggle visibility of layers on and off. And not only can we toggle the visibility in the top left, we can turn filtering on. And we can start setting it up so that our lists are only filtering a very specific layer at a time. So maybe I only want to see the flooring markups because that's all I'm working with right now. It doesn't get rid of everything else. It just makes it light gray so it's not at the forefront of what you're working with, right? So that filtering is actually incredibly powerful. And I love, love, love using this. And you may have noticed that there, Ed's markups. I love using this as a way to help assign and kind of call out who needs to do what. So if I'm the one doing this review that's over here, maybe I want to grab all these items and create a brand new layer to put them on. So I'm going to add a new layer here. That new layer is going to be Ed's markups. Maybe I'm handing this off to someone else. Maybe I'm going to do them myself later. It's still nice to have the ability to do that. So I've created Ed's markups, and I can jump right down in here, highlight all three of these using the Shift key, right click them, and I can just go straight to layer and throw all of these on Ed's markups. And now I have that full layer control, very similar to AutoCAD. If I want to hide or show these things, we can toggle them on or off. If I want to filter to only see the elements that I have actually called out, because maybe 3 or 4 of us are sharing the same document to do that markup, I can go ahead and filter down to only the elements that I want to work with, right? It's a very, very cool process. Now, beyond just doing the filtering of what I want to work with, we can also jump in and mark stuff done. You'll notice there's a whole bunch of statuses over here. So as we walk through, you can actually double click on those statuses, and I could say this is completed. So we're done. So maybe I want to double filter. Maybe I want to filter by blank and by Ed's markups. So as I finish each markup, it disappears off of my sheet. You know, no more double highlighting as we walk through. You don't need to highlight your projects to get through anymore, right? We can just let our markup tracker handle it for us, calling out as those things have been finished, layers that they exist on, and with a couple basic filters, life is nice and easy. So we've seen some toolboxes, we've seen some markups, we've seen some measurements, and we've seen some ways to manage them. There's a couple more things I'd like to take a look at, and then I think we're going to just open this up for questions. As a reminder, if you've been building any questions up till now, feel free to throw them into the question box and we'll answer them at the end. So a couple more things I wanted to point out. I'm going to throw you a real deep trick. Took me years to figure out that this existed, and it is super nice, and I think everyone needs to know it exists. So what is that? It's signatures. Anyone who has been using Bluebeam probably is a little bit annoyed with how the Bluebeam signatures look. And I am here to tell you, you have options. You are not stuck with just that one signature that you're working with. Now I'm going to go ahead and pretend we're doing this brand new for the first time ever. If we jump up here and I click new, this is exactly what it's going to look like. And give it a couple seconds just to pop that open for me, right? We get this window. I'm recommending creating a regular old one. I'm going to call this BB test. I'm going to toggle my caps lock first. You need to give it an email address. And you need to give it a password. The reason being, Bluebeam will not let you edit these signatures or do stuff with these signature files. It locks it into this fancy signature package so people can't rip off your signature and pretend that it exists someplace else. So really cool, pretty, you'll notice, really data encrypted and everything. It's nice. I do recommend it. So what's cool is you can create it, and we get this little thing that sits down here, which honestly doesn't look all that great, right? So it turns out you do have the ability to edit it and change it. And what's cool about being able to edit it and change it is you can not only choose what information is showing up, right? If I want to change any of these, I can get rid of the date. Maybe I don't want them to have my contact info. Maybe I do want the date, but no contact info. You know, don't email me, just accept it, right? You can choose where this stuff is going. All up to you, but I think the real key here is that we can change down on graphic from none name to file. And you can actually import your own file in here. So if you have a maybe picture of your signature, you could actually pull that picture of your signature in here. And maybe you don't want to see any of this data on the right and all you want is your signature. Great, there you go. turn it all off and save that as your signature instead. Oh, you don't even want to see the Bluebeam logo? Get rid of it, right? The key is that the signature is saved within this password protected digital certificate that cannot be tampered and messed with. So really nifty, really cool way to add those signatures in here and, you know, stop cutting, copying, pasting an image that someone else could then cut, copy, and paste someplace else as well. I'd also like you to maybe think about using a file or something like that, right? Maybe you want to go ahead and you'll notice, right, it's calling out any graphic tile file. Maybe you want to use this for a professional stamp or something like that as well, right? Because the stamps that do exist within tools here, you'll notice are not protected by anything, right? Anyone can use any of these stamps. Only people with passwords and signatures can use signatures. So some cool stuff there, really nifty, really nice way to kind of wrap that document up. Now, the last step that I like to go through before I send one of these documents out, and it really depends on if this is internal or external markups, is jumping up to my document and using the flatten or unflatten commands. Now, unflatten just undoes what flatten does and can only be used if you leave the ability to allow markup recovery. So if you don't have that, it doesn't work. If you do have that, it does work. And all this really does, it takes every single markup that we put in here and it treats them not as markups, it treats them as part of the page. You can almost think of it like printing this page out and opening it up again. The markups have been removed. No one can see that these are individual elements, delete or move them. They are just part of the document now. So I tend to do this before an export out to someone, you know, who's not within my company, who I don't want to have that access. So flatten's pretty nifty. And then really we're in the back end now, right? I've signed it, I've flattened whatever I needed to. Maybe I flattened before I signed it because signatures won't flatten. Whatever you may have done. We're really into the back half here. And the last couple things I want to show you guys. I want everyone to be aware of the compare tools. So I'm going to show you just some real quick compare and then we can wrap up. So why are the document compare tools so cool? They're going to save you so much time. If you're unaware, you are going to save a lot of time using these tools. So I'm going to pop open the original compare documents tool. So by default, it's going to try and load stuff that's already within your project. You can, however, load stuff that's not within your project. Now, I do have 2 pages that I edited previously that I want us to take a look at because they're pretty dang similar, but there's some slight differences, and it may not be immediately, you know, visible what those differences are. And you know, I can zoom out here a little bit. We got this one here. We've got the altered one over here. And, you know, maybe you're noticing the difference right away, but maybe it's 5 o'clock on a Friday and I can barely tell what's going on between them. I need it really pointed out in front of me. So that's really where the document compare is awesome. And I'm going to recommend everyone use overlay instead of compare. Let's see what overlay does. Overlay lets me grab the 2 documents that I already have open, choose colors for them. I tend to leave it default. And then page or pages. This does mean if you want to overlay 2 full documents against each other, you can also do that. I like to do that. And then I say, okay, I want to point out that align points does exist. Align points is 3 points within each document for manual lining up. The reason that that's cool, that means that if you scanned a drawing back in where you made some markups in the field, you would absolutely be able to overlay that scanned document against this document. So choosing 2 points over there and then 1 in the top right, 3 common points that I can have on both documents. I can come down here and choose 1, 2, 3. And then you can say, okay, and align them. Now I am going to clear that alignment and do it by default because these are the same sheet. I want them directly on top of each other. Now you might also notice I did make a mistake here. I am going up against my combined set when I did mean to combine these 2. So it's going to be very visible why these 2 things do not line up right now. Wow, look at all those differences. Let's very quickly do that compare without the combined set using the actual sets I want to use. And when I say compare, I do mean overlay. I do not recommend using the compare app. I will show you why in a second. There we go, the correct 2 documents. And then this is what we get. We get a drawing where everything that's overlaid has sort of this neutral tone. Because it's red and blue, we get a purple. Red is one document, blue the other, purple the same. You can jump up here and it automatically creates each document as its own layer, and you can toggle those layers on or off. You can see exactly what changed between each of them within seconds by doing a visual comparison. Now, I want to just show you why I don't recommend the other one, and it's because it makes too many markups. There is a compare documents that's in here as well. Personally, I think it makes too many markups. I don't want to do it. It is what it is. So we're going to leave that one as the same one. We are going to pick the other one down here. So that's going to be the altered, and I happen to have that over here. Fun fact, if you didn't know, you can paste a location in the file name and then choose the file afterwards. So I've chosen those two documents. I'm ready to go. I say OK, and it's going to go through and compare those documents. The key is that it goes through and it creates bubbles. The second it loads, it creates bubbles, and there we go. This is what I do not like about it. It goes through and it generates a bubble on your original compared document, showing that stuff has changed in each of these locations, and then showing these items over here instead. While it is nice to have those bubbles show up, when we think of a document that has had many changes, your screen winds up with just hundreds and hundreds of these teeny tiny cloud circles. So do yourself a favor, maybe don't use compare documents and instead use the overlay and place bubbles or place clouds or markups, whatever it may be, as you go and as you need them. All right, I think I have held much too much of your time already. I've gotten through, I'd say, all of the big things I wanted to talk about here. I think it's about time we take a look at those questions. So just before we answer questions, I do want to wrap up on a couple items I have over here. So I do want you to be aware, you can check out our website or our YouTube channel and see recordings of these webinars, including this one, and learn all about what Microdesk can do for your projects. So you can read about the existing stuff we've got, watch videos, you can subscribe and stay up to date with everything that's new in BIM. And I do appreciate everyone taking time out of your day to learn a bit about Bluebeam, and I hope you got some new tricks that you can take back with you. So for more information on Bluebeam, you can always reach out to Microdesk and we would be happy to assist. With that, I'd like to jump to answering questions. So if you do have questions, please type them into the questions box, which I am going to pop out and take a look at now. Ooh, wow, you got a bunch of questions. How about that? How do you fix the labels that are wrong? Well, unfortunately, I don't have an automatic way to fix these ones. The quickest way for me, I'd likely have to go in and manually renumber these. Really what I'd probably do if this was a real project scenario, I would reprint them and see if it reads a little bit better on a reprint. More often than not, it's just a little glitch or something like that, and that's all it takes. Do the sub bookmarks and flags work in a BB session? I do believe they do. I don't think any of this stuff doesn't work. The only thing that gets weird with sessions in Studio is whether or not your markups will work. In Studio, you tend to not have access to other people's markups, and you have no access to markups that were created before it was pushed up into Studio. For bookmarks and tags, how does that information display in Reader? Now, I have to be honest, I'm not positive. I am not an Adobe Reader user, but I do know that bookmarks will be maintained. So bookmarks should be fine. Tags, I am not so sure about. Is area only available once you set the scale? You can place the area ahead of time, but it won't let you finish. So if I attempted to do this first, just jumping straight up and doing that measurement area, and actually I need to go to a document that has no scale. So I have not scaled this one yet. It'll let you place it down. but it will immediately ask you to choose a scale. Now, you could just choose a preset scale and set it to that and leave it, and then come back later and rescale your drawing. I don't recommend that though. If you are placing stuff down, set your scale and set your scale. If you rotate the sheet, do the markups rotate with it? Let's find out. I'm 90% sure they do, but 90% is not an answer. There's your answer, yes. All right, give me a second to scroll a little bit here. Rotate sheet, markup status to finish. Does it remove the markup? No, it does not. So there is no finish. Here, let me clear all of these things. That is actually why we want to use the tracking down here, right? That's the point of the status. So there is no finish, because just because something has been set by complete does not actually mean it's complete, right? I set it complete and I created it. Realistically though, I'm not the one completing my own markups. So it's actually set down here so that you could actually have one person complete it, someone else reject it, they come back to do it again, they complete it, someone else comes back and sets it accepted. And the idea being, you're not losing any of this stuff. We're going through, we're marking it as something that exists, something that's done. Maybe what you want to do is, once you set it to approved, is move the layer to an approved layer, and you could absolutely just turn that approved layer off so you're not seeing those elements afterwards, right? But really, the idea is just to jump in and filter the stuff you don't want to see. I cannot comment on how these work with the mobile or iPad version of Bluebeam. I do not actually use those. I could not give you a good answer there, Anthony. I can request though. I have many colleagues at Microdesk who do use the mobile version. If you could shoot us an email, I can go ahead and poll those people and find out for you what our official recommendation is, and hook you up with that. Thank you, JD. After setting a line, can you snap it to horizontal or vertical? You actually have access to snaps in general. So it's up to you what you want to snap to. And let me see. Right down here. So there's snap to grid, a whole bunch of snap options, snap to markup, snap to content. Up to you. If you want to snap to vertical, just make sure you have snaps turned on and you should have no issues. Unfortunately, I do not have AIA learning units, though that is something we can definitely look into going forward. This video will absolutely be available on our website. I'd like to think within a few days, but it really depends on how backed up our marketing department is. I'm sure if you check next week, though, you should be able to find it. Get the measurement of a drawn polyline. The polyline itself should call out its length as a parameter. If I were to jump in here, go up and look at a tool and draw a polyline, and we look over on the left, I believe the polyline, it does not have a length. I do not off the top of my head have the answer on how to get that length. But Nick, if you want to go ahead and reach out, I can do a little bit of digging and get back to you on that one. For anyone looking, I don't know if it's there or not, you can email Microdesk itself if you'd like to email me directly. I am, and it should be in my name as well if you go find me in the attendees. I am elariviere@microdesk.com. So you should also be able to right-click me as a staff and get that out as well. Sketch to scale, we looked at very, very quickly. The idea for sketch to scale is that once you've set a scale using calibrate, we can go ahead and draw polylines, ellipses, rectangles, or polygons to that scaled size instead. So I did that with a rectangle earlier. It is the same process for all of them. As you start drawing, it does pop open the little window to the right. And as you jump in here, you can jump back in afterwards and change some of those values as needed. Now, if I delete this and we come back to sketch to scale, you can start typing in those values and tab between each one. So doing that same sketch to scale, jumping down here, if I knew I wanted 3 by 3 by some rotation, right? You can kind of just tab through and grab those elements. If you want more on sketch to scale, there are a bunch of YouTube videos about that feature specifically, or again, feel free to reach out. Draw quarter or half circles for door swings. If you're trying to draw door swings frequently, I would recommend just drawing one, right? Doing the tool for a sketch, right? Markup, you can go ahead and draw it with lines and arcs, and then you can absolutely just add that to your own tool chest afterwards by grouping those elements together and working with those. I just see a question that says without using measure. I'm not sure what that is. I'm skipping over it. Flattening function work when a document is checked, or does it have to be done separately? I guess I'm not positive what the question is about when a document is checked or done separately, but flattening is its own individual command that does exist out here, though if you are exporting it out, it is also a checkbox option when you do exports. I'm not sure what you're looking for there, Paul. There's a lot of questions here, and I think yours might be linked to another one that got lost. Are there other tools available for download? To be honest, I'm not positive, though I would like to think there are. A quick check on the Bluebeam support page would probably be the place to go. Again, if you'd like to reach out, I'm more than happy to go dig into that and let you know. 2 different documents side by side is probably just doing the side by side settings. So you can view documents side by side over here, and you can also do continuous documents side by side over here if you want to do that. And then you have it sitting like this, where you do have those 2 documents, one on either half. If you draw an angle, can you go in and edit it afterwards to an exact size? From what I was just doing here, yes, you can, but it's to document scale, not to calibrated scale. So zoom in back out here to grab here. If I jump down, let's grab one of the sketch to scale rectangles there. Because if we look at that rectangle there and go to its settings as they exist on the left, we are not getting, if you look through here, right, we are not getting the dimensional values. We are getting the, inch values instead. So really what I'd say is if you set one of them with the tab, if you know the width and you set one of them, you could set the height with the other one afterwards. A markup under an existing markup. So like something like this. I'm going to hope that's the answer because I'm not totally sure on the question. Scale is set to the document as a whole. So if you have multiple scales across multiple things, you may need to change your scale. As I jump to different views here, and I attempt to do that sketch to scale, it's not going to ask me to change anything. This is a document-based scale. Actually, I lied. This is a page-based scale that you assign to pages that I usually assign to all pages. But no, you do have individual access to that if you want to. I am not positive if BB still develops the mobile app. All apologies, I do not use the mobile app at all, though I would love to let you know. Looks like Marek has already left, so there is no additional answer there. I can't tell you the rules. The rules on objects appearance are really per object, I think. Bluebeam is definitely not as free as Revit or AutoCAD would be. I guess I'm not positive about what the object is. Most objects you should have full control over appearance on, or maybe not full control, but at least partial control. If you want to dive deeper into that and see exactly what's looking on, you can absolutely reach out and we can schedule a separate session to dive deeper. To Nick, I think we answered that question in answering a different question. Yes, you can set scale to the entire document rather than certain pages. We just saw that. Bluebeam PDFs compatible with Adobe projects. Absolutely, a PDF is a PDF. It's just whether or not all the information will still be there. So while we are storing all of this metadata for accepted, rejected, and whatnot inside Bluebeam, you would not see this stuff inside Adobe. You would see stuff like bookmarks though. Note for anyone else, holding shift will force stuff into the polar directions. Very good note. Polyline length tool to get your polyline length. Good note. If you are talking checked in and checked out using maybe a studio or something like that, flattening is not part of that. 24 is 24. You can absolutely create your own stamps for drawing an RFI approval. Again, I am recommending if those stamps are special ones, if they are legal, if they have someone's livelihood on stake, you should probably create them as signatures instead and load the graphic in. Though you can absolutely just generate a regular old stamp. A regular old stamp does not have any locks or anything on it. You can just create them and load in the stuff that you want to be in it. I'm not sure if you can send a link to a comment, but let's go ahead. I do not see a way that I could send an email link directly from this. Maybe in Studio you would be able to do something like that, but I don't believe you can do that right here. The quickest way would be to jump down and maybe attempt to assign it to someone, but again, I don't think you get that unless you have other people joined in a studio session. So you meant like this? You can absolutely shift select in here if that's what you're talking about. That's how I did that. I use shift select to grab many. And it looks like the last question is compressing to reduce file size, but maintaining readability. I'll be honest, I don't believe I compress my models. I don't believe I do this at all. I really don't compress. I really just flatten it, and at that point, I tend to be done. If we're talking compress, or maybe, compressing it could lose some data. Maybe we're not talking compression, but we're talking readability, visibility, print settings, something like that. I tend to make my documents smaller, not within Bluebeam, but by choosing the print settings that the document's actually coming in with. So my document itself doesn't come with too much of a high resolution. I tend to say, or not say, have tested DPI of 300 and above. The difference is unnoticeable to the human eye. So if you set DPI for 600, you wouldn't know the difference between 3 and 600. If you set it for anything less than that, you're probably not going to notice it at all. But realistically, PDF should be vector files, so you should be able to zoom in near infinitely and maintain that crisp line because it's all vector based. If I were to do it, I'd probably just let it be where it is. I can't say I personally have a reason. I do not have an opinion here. If you'd like to shoot me an email, I will reach out to some of the other power users for Bluebeam who do run into this, and I will see what they tend to recommend instead. I'd rather not give you improper or wrong information. I'd rather ask and get you exactly what you need. All right. In older versions, I remember being able to set a resolution. I think someone's mentioning resolution in here as well. I didn't see it immediately. I'm wondering if possibly in edit, we can set that custom resolution. If you can set a custom resolution, I would tend to say that's the way to do it. 80 DPI and up tends to be pretty safe, though 80 will look a little rough when you zoom in on it. So we can wait and see if that has anything to do with DPI here. And if not, we can take a look at some of those settings. So for anyone who does not care about this file size or these settings, we hit the end of the question list. We did it. So sneak your last minute questions in right now, or thank you for joining me. Please reach out to anyone who's got questions or questions I wasn't able to answer here. I really want to make sure you get your answers. And other than that, thanks for joining. I had a great time. I hope you did too. And I do plenty of webinars all over the place. Feel free to tune into some of the others, watch some of our recorded videos, or even make a suggestion for something else you'd like to learn. Otherwise, we will stick around while Bluebeam loads up my custom edit settings here. Oh, perfect. Yeah, this is awesome. So, yep, like I was saying, you can do it totally by DPI. You could probably change everything else to be the same. Honestly, 100 DPI up, you're probably good to go. Anything above 300 DPI tends to be where I set final quality prints, and then 600 DPI is where I do prints for record. So if I need to kick something out that's getting printed out, and it's getting stored at the owner's office or something, I want that to look as crisp as possible. Even if they can't tell the difference, I know the difference. I'll actually jump into Revit and I'll change my initial print from Revit to 600 DPI. Internal prints for Revit, I do closer to that, maybe 150 or so. You'd actually be surprised how much you save just jumping from 300 to 150, jumping from 150 to 100, again, saving even more. So flattening, changing your DPI, both ways that you can save a ton of file size. Though I would say if you can leave it as is without reducing, life will be nice. They are vector files. As long as you didn't print raster, it comes out as a vector and is infinitely zoomable to maintain as much definition and quality as you want. So if you can maintain that file size, I don't recommend reducing it, but otherwise, there we go. All right, it's a ton of stuff. Thank you, everybody. And please reach out with any further questions. Otherwise, it is 2 o'clock and enjoy your Tuesday. The video will be posted to YouTube, and I do believe if you registered and put your email in when you registered, you will get an email letting you know when that video has been posted. All right. Thank you, everybody.